The 2010 season,
yeah, baby,
starts now.
Yeehaw.
Budweiser Shootout practice at Daytona International Speedway. You're watching Speed Week's coverage presented by Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Defending series champ Jimmie Johnson is the first car to roll out. Kyle Busch had to take a detour on his way to the practice line. You are required to sign in before you can compete. Junior hops aboard. Clint Bowyer hops in for Kevin Harvick. More on that in a moment. Kyle Busch makes the long run back and hops in his car and rolls out for practice. It is a day of great unknowns. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip with you once again from Daytona, and happy to be here. That's the known. The unknown is that all these drivers hit the track for the first time without the benefit of what? Any off-season testing on the tracks where they race.
So that should make this practice session just a little intense.
Just a little,
because the guys get out there and they've been boarding up all winter long. They got all this energy and they got all this stuff. They're ready to go out there and do some bump drafting.
Well, and yeah, there's so many things they want to sort through. A lot of these teams have not even been near a racetrack since they left Homestead. You've got some driver-crew chief relationships that's just getting off to a start, like Kyle Busch and Steve Addington. A lot of these guys, they built new race cars. And I talked to Jimmie Johnson this morning. You saw him the first car on the racetrack, and he said, you know, you feel like you've done everything you can over the winter as far as the engines, the car, but you will not know until you get the high gear and make that very first lap.
Pin up aggression. That's what I was thinking about. They are going to have some.
There'll be 24 drivers on track. 28 drivers are eligible, and here's how the Budweiser Shootout field is determined. Take the 12 drivers in the chase for the Sprint Cup from 2009. Add in any Sprint Cup champions that are still active. Then sprinkle in the Budweiser Shootout winners who still have Sprint Cup racing licenses, and then you add the Daytona 500 and 400 winners plus the Rookie of the Year. That's 28 drivers, 24 of whom are going to practice in this session and compete in this year's Budweiser Shootout. Let's go down to the Sprint Cup garage area, and first to Dick Berggren.
Well, thanks, Mike. I am in Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s garage area. That crew behind me, Earnhardt himself, and all of his fans hope that 2010 is a better year for Jr. than 2009 was. I'm not going to go into a lot of details other than to tell you that his teammates finished first, second, and third in points, and Jr. was 25th. But his fans have stuck with him and named Earnhardt Jr. the most popular driver again. He is out on the racetrack. At the racetrack he has done the best at of any of them. 12 times he has crossed victory lane. Earnhardt is looking to make it a baker's dozen this year. He's got a good shot at it. He really runs well here. Now let's go to my pit colleague, Matt Yoakum, for the 10th straight year. Matty?
And Dick, it's always an honor to work with you here in the garage area and on pit road. It seems like the mood in the garage area every year is like the first day of school, a NASCAR type reunion of sorts. One driver missing though, Mike touched on it earlier, Kevin Harvick. Gil Martin tells me Harvick is actually back in North Carolina battling flu-like symptoms. So his teammate Clint Bowyer climbed behind the wheel of the 29 and will practice this car for this evening. One issue that they had, Bowyer's brand spanking new helmet, Lady Luck. There's an issue with the radio connection, so actually Clint Bowyer is not only driving Harvick's car, he's also wearing his helmet.
Bowyer won the Nationwide Series race here from the pole last July.
But you know, back to Dick Berggren talking about Dale Earnhardt Jr., and of course all 4 of the Hendrick cars will be in this race. You see Jeff Gordon, the 24 car, leading the pack. The Hendrick group, they were off at the restrictor plate tracks in 2009. If you remember, not really any of them ran that well at Speed Weeks. They got their cars driving good in July, but they were off last year as far as the 4 restrictor plate races.
Yeah, does it look like to you, watching this gaggle of cars, that these guys, it's like they were on the track yesterday. They're out there just 3-4 wide, just like they left here in July.
Yeah, picked up right where we left off. We'll introduce you to some new paint schemes and some new driver team combinations in this practice session. as things get a little squirrely.
I'm telling
and
you.
3 wide right away.
I'm curious just how long it will be before these guys get out there. You know, they've been allowed, they said they've been allowed to bump draft, be a little bit more aggressive. I just wonder who's going to be the first one to step over that line and have to go over to the NASCAR hauler and meet up with Mr. Helton.
You know, Darrell, bump drafting, of course, a big story from Talladega. Here at this place, touched on it a little bit, as rough as this racetrack is, you want to make sure you don't do any bump drafting in the corner, regardless if NASCAR's policing it or not.
Yeah, these drivers, they know where the edge is. They know when they're over the limit. But sometimes you just get yourself in a position that there's nothing you can really do about it. Somebody bumps you, you bump somebody else. A lot of chain reaction when you run this close together at this kind of speed.
See Montoya there in that Target 42 car. Of the 24 drivers, he's the only one making his first Budweiser Shootout start in that 42 car.
And that car doesn't look like it's handling very good either. Look at it kind of zigging and zagging through that corner as it goes through the bumps. Looks like he's got his hands full sawing on that thing, chopping some wood.
You're riding with Mark Martin, who has new colors for 2010.
I think that's a good sponsor for him. Go, Daddy.
Perfect.
Hadn't thought of it that way, but why not?
And next year he'll have Go Granddaddy. You know, who knows? It could be anything.
One thing is sure, you'll be able to find him on the racetrack.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a distinctive paint job.
You know, you see Clint Boyer in Kevin Harvick's car that Matt Yoakum talked about, the 29 car. You see his teammate out there as well, Jeff Burton, in the 31. And I look for the Childers cars, regardless of this practice, like normal. I don't think you'll see them run a ton of laps. I think what you'll see these guys here, they may run 20 to 25 laps, because the format of this race on Saturday night is 25 laps. They take a 10-minute break, and then they go at it for 50 laps. It's a 75-lap race total.
That's a 10-minute catch-your-breath break. Boy, these cars, Larry, this track is pretty bumpy, as you know. There's a lot of dips and dives in this joint. And these cars are really, really moving around a lot. They run so close together that these things put off such a wake that they really, really bounce and move around a ton.
Riding with Denny Hamlin, he's been on up top. He's been in the middle, on the bottom. Comes Kyle Busch.
And you hear him playing with the throttle. I mean, he's down in those bumps. Had Kyle on his right quarter panel. Probably was trying to suck him around just a little bit. Dale Jr., I know his car looks like it's pretty fast, but man, he had his hands full there a little bit ago. Watch this off turn 4.
Watch the 88. Up on the outside.
Watch his hands in there. Zip, zip, whoop, whoop.
Got a little busy for a minute.
And here goes Kyle. He's going to run up through the middle here.
This is the pass we saw from Denny Hamlin's car.
Yeah, that's what got Denny loose. These things are a little evil right now.
You know, we have a couple of aero changes that are different from how we raced last year. One of them on the wing, the end plates. The end plates now are the curved end plates. Last year at the restrictor plate tracks, you had to run flat end plates. But the other thing that's definitely different is you see that we caught the shark fin down the left side of the back glass. You see it on Joey Logano's car. We've always had that shark fin, but now you see it actually extends down the length of the deck lid, and it's much taller on the back window. One reason NASCAR did that is they found out as Kyle Busch has his hands full in that 18.
And Logano. He almost got run over by Mark Martin there.
But what NASCAR found out, with that fin being bigger and going down the deck lid, when the car gets backwards, it increased the liftoff speed by 8 to 10 miles an hour, which is a great thing.
Speed's presentation of Bud Shootout practice from Daytona is presented by Budweiser, with full flavor and a crisp, clean finish. It's what we do. And brought to you in part by Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Try a new way to indulge in Hershey's. And by DirecTV. To get the most out of your high-def TV, you got to hook it up to DirecTV. Call 1-800-DirecTV. As Larry pointed out earlier, Saturday night on Fox, 2 segments, 25 laps, 10-minute pit stop, 50 laps. Now this evening, these 24 drivers will draw for their starting positions. Sometimes they draw out of a beer bottle, sometimes out of a hat. I don't know, there's monkeys involved, lizards. You never know what they're going to come up with for the Budweiser Shootout draw.
Diving for apples, you know, it could be anything.
Let's look at Jimmy Johnson last time by.
These cars are not happy in the middle. And here's something to remember. What happened here last? Oh,
my gosh.
They don't like, these cars are not happy right now. But one thing you remember, what happened here last weekend?
We had the 24-hour race.
When you have the 24-hour race, you've had cars going around this joint for 24 solid hours. They oil this place down. And it takes some practice, it takes some time to get the cars happy on this kind of condition, under those conditions.
Dick.
Well, as Larry McReynolds told you, a lot of changes in these cars. We've got that blade going up the roof. We've got some changes in the airfoil in the back, and it's a new tire as well. Greg Biffle, you've just come off the racetrack. What's it feel like?
Well, our car was just a little bit too tight right there. Just wouldn't turn. I'd drive in on the bottom and it'd slide up to the center, and you know, I knew that I need to come in and work on it before I, you know, slide up into somebody. So we're going to work on the 3M car here a little bit. It seems like it's turning a lot of RPM. TAC wasn't working on that run. We're going to take a look and see what it might be. It's not a good way to start the season now with new gear and all that, with the TAC not working. So we got to see. It sounds like the engine's turning a lot of RPM, so we're curious to see what it's doing and maybe make a gear change, work on this thing, get back out.
It's going to take everybody a little while to get used to all this stuff and get the cars dialed in, and that's part of the fun of auto racing, is tuning them up.
You know, one reason probably they're going to see more RPM or feel more RPM is we've got a bigger carburetor restrictor plate. It's a 64th of an inch bigger than we ran here last year, but remember, every 64th of an inch is about 14 horsepower. But guess what about that restrictor plate? That's the biggest we've run here in 20 years since the 1989 Daytona 500.
1989 Daytona 500?
Huh.
Next Thursday, NASCAR's back, and we're here in Daytona for a pair of races on the high banks. Be here as the field is set for the 500 with the Gatorade Duel at Daytona next Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern, live and only on Speed. We have a lot of changes for 2010, and here are some of the biggest off-season changes. Bump drafting rules eliminated at Daytona and Talladega. You can bump and thump all you want.
And I really, you know, one of the things that bothers me about that, I'm glad they're doing it, but they should have just let it happen naturally. They should never, I would have never told these guys, hey, go out there and bump draft and be aggressive and have, you know, do whatever you want to do. Here's the reason why, just real quickly, I want to tell you this. What if somebody gets over aggressive? Now, the guys over in the booth next door, they got to make a call.
Right.
And the first thing you're going to hear is, well, you said you're going to let us go out and draft and bump and do all those things, and already I'm having to go to the truck.
Now, we have talked about the restrictor plate being larger for Daytona. There is the rear wing that's part of the COT package. And a little later on in this season, probably at one of the short tracks, a conventional style rear spoiler will replace that wing in Sprint Cup racing. Let's check with Matt.
Mike, one change for Kyle Busch actually is a carryover from 2009 when Dave Rogers moved to this 18 Sprint Cup team from the Nationwide Series car back at the Texas race in November. He just did a small debrief with Kyle, sticking his head in the window. And one thing that Kyle noticed about the car was just the difference in temperature, giving a lot of feedback over that first run. He said the difference in water temperature from being out front, which he took the lead right at the end before he pulled in, to when he was stuck back in the draft, was about 25 degrees. So the team going over a lot of little things on this 18 car here early on.
But you can tell everybody had their hands full. Most of them ran about 10 to 12 laps, and now of our 24 cars, not a soul's out there on the racetrack right now. A lot of adjustments going on.
That's one of the things you really work hard on with no testing or anything, is how much tape can I run on the nose, because that speed, the more you can get on there and get away with, the faster you can go.
Daytona International Speedway earlier today played host to Arca practice after a very busy media day. Danica Patrick among those getting a lot of track time in what was about a 4-hour practice session. So perhaps some of that rubber and whatever was on the track from the Rolex 24 was abraded off there by the Arca cars. But now Arca runs a different tire than in Sprint Cup. They run Hoosier tires, so that rubber on the track is going to be a little different characteristic as you look at Danica's number 7.
Yeah, you know, the other thing too is I was watching Michael, I think it was, put his helmet on there. Everything you got down here right now is brand new. Most of the cars, most of the seats, your helmets, your uniforms, radios. Right now, you're just kind of running down the checklist to be sure that all that new stuff's working like you want it to.
And in the case of the fellow you were just looking at, your whole team is brand new. Jamie McMurray, one of those who switched rides.
And a lot of new crew chief driver combinations, Larry.
Well, yeah, when you think about his crew chief, Kevin Mannion realistically has never worked with anybody but Martin Truex Jr. as far as in NASCAR Nationwide or Sprint Cup.
Let's get with Matt.
And we're down here catching up with the driver in the one car who is second fastest so far in practice. Well, your initial voyage with the one team, what do you think so far early on?
The Bass Pro Shop Chevy was good. You know, it's tough when you get out in the middle of that, and honestly, it takes about 15 laps before the handling starts going away, and I think we only ran about 10 or 11 laps there. So everybody's cars drive really well at that point. But we've got a little bit of stuff to work on, but so far, I mean, pretty good speed in the car.
Joining this team, brand new for you, working with a lot of these guys, as far as the debrief goes and some of the terminology and some of the things, the practices that they're normally used to, anything pop up that you had questions on? Maybe they do this, maybe they do that?
Well, I mean, I like to sit in the car. Like, I typically get in the car 20 minutes before practice starts, and I just sit in there the whole practice. I don't really care that it's hot. I feel like you miss out on practice if you don't get out. But it's good, I think, for our first time to come in and get out and really like explain with your hands and maybe draw maps so that you can explain what you know your entry is, because every driver has a little bit different description of what the entry or the middle or the exit of the corner is, and so I want to make sure that I explain to them exactly what I'm saying.
So you told me earlier today on Media Day that you had a lot of people walking up to you and saying, hey, aren't you?
Martin Truex Jr., yeah. That's funny, though. It goes both ways, because Kenseth walked up and he said, man, everybody keeps thinking I'm you. So it goes both ways, and it'll take a little bit of time. And, you know, even just walking through the garage, the amount of crew guys that have changed teams, and you walk through and you remember somebody having a different uniform on, it'll take a little while to get used to that.
All right, thanks, Martin. I mean, Jamie.
It's not the only change this year. Martin Truex, who vacated the number 1, he has moved to Michael Waltrip Racing, and he is the full-time driver replacing Michael, who will run a part-time schedule. Brad Keselowski joins Penske Racing. He replaces David Stremme. And Steve Addington is the new crew chief for Kurt Busch. He spent most of last season with Kurt's younger brother.
Now, Brad Keselowski ran the last 3 races last year for Penske Racing, that 12 car, but he's got a new crew chief, Jay Guy.
Speed's coverage of Bud Shootout practice from Daytona is brought to you by Aliens vs. Predator, 2010's biggest multi-species, multiplayer game.
Now, here's a little bit of a change for 2010. Not the sponsor for Michael Waltrip, but this is the 51 car. And right now, Darrell, you can probably elaborate on this. Michael's plans right now as far as racing Sprint Cup is only the 2 races here during speed weeks. But what he's done, rather than get a crew chief for just those 2 races, actually Pat Trison and Rodney Childers, 2 of the other crew chiefs from Michael Waltrip Racing, are working with him for this race because their 2 guys are not in the Budweiser Shootout.
Yeah, and then you look at his number, 51, and quite honestly, I was surprised and when I saw the car with 51 on, I wasn't sure what was going on, but I think, I'm never quite clear when I'm talking to him, but I think that it's the 15 reversed.
Right, he won Daytona in the 15, so he's reversed it. You know, I don't know how many races your brother plans to run, but I wish he'd go back to Bristol in August, because we watched him run at Bristol, and he drove the wheels off that car. I mean,
well,
unbelievable performance.
I'm glad he's running the 500. The
there you
Daytona
go.
500. And I love to see him run restrictor plate races, because his whole career, he has been a great restrictor plate race driver. And I'd love to see him on these on Daytona and Talladega.
It's that old big size 15-foot pushing that throttle.
That's right.
Maybe now it's a size 51. Maybe that's metric. Dick Berggren.
Hey, good news, Mike. What we're hearing from the drivers on the radios is that they really like the changes that NASCAR has made to the cars. Mark Martin sitting in this one right now. Here's what he told his crew. Smooth ride, more handling, big speed to the corner, more speed than I know what to do with. I could do it, but I better not. And listen to what Denny Hamlin told his crew. Had a good feeling. Front grip is really good. Car's a better ride than here before. Sounds like NASCAR's hit a home run with the changes they have made.
Well, you know, one thing they also changed is the rear shock package. You know, NASCAR mandates the rate of the rear springs and the rear shocks for these teams. Everybody essentially will race the same shocks and springs that they issue to the teams. Well, that rear shock package is a shock package that existed on the old car. They never had changed it for this car, and they finally made those changes. A little more rebound to kind of hold the car down in the racetrack.
That'll make it go faster, too.
Yes, it will.
You add that big plate, pull that rear end down, get that blade out of the air, you're going to have some big speed into the corner.
Friday, February 12th, trucks are back. We're here in Daytona for the clashes, crashes, and high-banked excitement. The NASCAR Camping World Truck Series season opener. Friday, February 12th, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Only on Speed.
You know, you talk about only on Speed. Yeah, we've got Daytona 500 qualifying and the Budweiser Shootout Saturday on Fox. Of course, the Daytona 500 with that 1 o'clock start the following Sunday on February 14th. But our buddies at Speed, over 130 hours of programming during Speed Weeks, which is more than last year. And the other thing they've done, the fans asked for it, NASCAR programming 7 days a week throughout the season.
And the duels. The Gatorade duels are on the Speed Channel.
And it'll be live next Thursday.
And that is some nail-biting races. Who will go or who will go home?
Practice for the Budweiser Shootout. It's a crowded house coming out of turn number 4. A 10-car pack heading for the line.
And you know, I guess it's because we haven't seen any race cars on the racetrack since November. But when I see these guys out here practicing like this in this first practice and running 2 and 3 wide and kind of bumping each other the way they are, it makes me a little nervous. I don't think it bothers them a bit.
Well, and you know, we talk about this all the time. This racetrack is plenty wide enough for 3 cars, but when you start bouncing around like we see them and one guy gets a little bit loose or picks up a front end push, that's when the big pack gets in trouble.
Yeah, and when that happens, Larry, you can let off the throttle. It makes no difference. That car has got a mind of its own at that point.
Watch Joey Logano in the 20 pull up on Dale Jr. and loosen him up here.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's classic push loose. You see how the car kind of it's actually the front tires are not gripping. So you crank wheel into it, and when the front tires do bite, then it snaps. And that's a worst case scenario. Give me one or the other. Give me loose or give me pushing, but don't give me both.
And then the bumps just magnify it. If it's loose, it gets looser through the bumps. If it's shoving the nose, it's going to shove it more.
Right. It's kind of down the back here, and once you get into the corner where the bumps are, and the turns 3 and 4 is a little, it's not quite as bad, but you see that 18 car how it's just porpoising, pop, 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 and that's okay when you got a little bit of room. But like you said, Larry, you get somebody right on your outside and it starts hopping like that, you get behind on your steering in a hurry.
Now watch Greg Biffle and the number 16 Ford coming off turn 4 here.
Up on the outside. Well, we see that so much right now, Larry. All these cars, again, it's push loose. They got a lot of wheel. You see he's got it, but all of a sudden the front end bites and that back end hops out.
You know, it's almost like we go back to last year. Turn 4 seemed to be a real problem for people with the car getting loose and sliding the nose.
Except when you're in the middle in turn 2, then
yeah.
that was pretty big too. I'd bring that baby in and work on it if it were me.
And you know, we just talked to him a while ago, and he talked about he felt like his car was too tight. The front end wasn't turning.
I might even bring that baby in, park it, and say I'm going to do TV.
Jeff Burton right now is the quickest car on track, Matt.
Mike, he's been on the bottom. He was 5th in line, 7th on line, went to the high side. Now he's dropped to the back. Earlier in the session, Burton said the car tight on entry and tight on exit and bouncing around a lot. They were going to work on trying to make the car feel a little more secure for him. After some changes, went back out. Now he says the car is snappy loose. Now he's dropped to the back, and he's debriefing with the crew guys, and they're getting ready for him to come back in to make more changes.
But you can just watch that car, and you see the front tires. You got the wheel, and the front end bites, and the car wiggles. The front end bites, and the car wiggles. I think most of these guys are fighting a little bit of a front grip problem.
You know, we talked about different driver crew chief combinations.
Trouble.
There we go. That's Mark Martin in the 5.
Oh, man.
Jamie McMurray the 1.
Hamlin in the 11.
And it almost seems like this happens a lot in Budweiser Shootout practice.
There's 2.5 junk race cars.
These cars are just really moving around a lot on the racetrack. Boy, that thing is killed.
All right, watch on the right side of your screen. Watch Mark Martin in the 5.
I think Hamlin must. Yeah, here comes Hamlin. Oh, he just gets into the right rear of Mark and turns Mark around and sets off a chain reaction wreck there with a lot of race cars.
Yeah, Biffle involved, goes to the infield.
29.
Yeah, Clint Boyer in that 29 was
29
involved.
got hit.
I think several cars got some type of damage.
Exactly. I think everybody's out of their car down there. Looks like everybody's okay.
Looks like Brian Vickers got the tail end of it. Now you're watching from the 5, Mark Martin's car. There's the bump.
Yeah.
And it's on from there. All right, let's have a look at it from turn 1.
You see Mark's kind of in the middle there, and Mark starts to move over just a little bit. And quite honestly, the 11 car just, it wasn't even that Mark crowded him. He just got into the back of him.
And the 11 had his teammate Joey Logano, the 20, actually pushing him.
Exactly. Well, that's what drove the 11 into Mark, was that the 20 was laid into him.
Well, and Logano had Matt Kenseth pushing him.
Yeah, that's what happens. You get these chain reaction deals. You see that outside line. Everybody's coming. And, wow. Boy, McMurray, Mark, the 11. I believe the 83 may have gotten through there, Vickers, without hitting anything.
Now, you know, the box that this put these teams in, let's look at it one more time. This is looking from Casey Kane.
Keep coming.
There's 9 innings worth of hits there.
Got a feeling there's going to be some guys not happy with some guys here until they maybe get back to the garage. And Mark's saying, you know, dude, we just all kind of came together. Drivers, they get that hand thing going on. Sorry. Yeah, you know, Denny's got a bad knee already. It didn't help him. Wrecks like that don't help injuries.
No, he's got a torn ACL from a pickup basketball game.
You know, I don't know about the 16, the 20, and the 29 as far as damage, but there's no question the 1, the 5, and the 11 is going to have to go to a backup car. And what I was going to say is normally if you crash with your Daytona 500 car after the Budweiser Shootout, your Budweiser Shootout car is your backup car. So unless these teams, and I got to believe a lot of them have a third car down here, right, because they're not going to go to their 500 car now. They'll have to go to a third car.
I got a good idea that a lot of them are calling the shop right now, and that third car is on a rollback coming from North Carolina.
Matt?
Well, Mike, the Shell team and many members of the entire Richard Childress Racing organization down looking over the 29 car of Kevin Harvick when Clint Boyer was behind the wheel, caught up in that accident. The damage report, the rear bumper cover smashed in considerably, a lot of damage to the right front. Also, the left rear quarter panel is creased in. They're looking over things right now, but there's going to need to be a lot of work on this car if they're going to try to get it fixed.
Now, I'd imagine the one thing you don't want to do at this point is roll your Daytona 500 car off the truck.
You won't. You can't do that. What a lot of the big organizations do, like Richard Childress, is they may have a third car out in a trailer in the infield that has no decals on it, and it could serve as a backup for any of their teams.
Or it might be in a parking lot over here somewhere as a show car. I've seen that happen before.
That's right.
Cale Yarborough won this race in a backup show car, or not the Bud Shootout, but the 500.
Now, what I just saw there is we see Richard Childress there with Clint Boyer and Jeff Burton look over the 29 car. I just saw the 9 guys carrying a rear end housing. They were not involved in that wreck, but I think what's happening is these crew chiefs and engineers are working with different toe and different camber in the rear ends, trying to weigh out speed versus handling.
Right now, I need a little handling in my car.
I'm not worried about speed.
My car ain't handling so good.
All right, back to Matt.
And an update on the 29 car. They are saying at this juncture it's going to be a backup car because they feel like this car is absolutely killed.
The 16 car's got quite a bit of damage on the right side of it. I saw it go into the garage too. So.
All right, let's take one more look at this. I believe we're going to be watching from Joey Logano's car. Remember, he was tightly drafting Denny Hamlin when this broke out.
He was a lucky man.
Speed's presentation of Bud Shootout practice from Daytona is presented by Budweiser. With full flavor and a crisp, clean finish, it's what we do. And brought to you by Marathon, fueling the American spirit. And by Hershey's Milk and Milkshakes. Try a new way to indulge in Hershey's. Well, we're backing up to Budweiser Shootout practice here, as in backup cars because of this. The initial contact, is it between Hamlin and Mark Martin? It is, and as Denny Hamlin lifts, Logano gets into him because, well, Matt Kenseth got into him because Clint Boyer got into him, and what do they say in the commercial? So on and so on and so on.
Yeah, and really and truly, right now, and this is what I said all along about this aggressive driving and bump drafting and all that. The drivers will work it out. If Mark's unhappy with Denny Hamlin or anything that took place there, Mark is a veteran driver. He's a senior member of our sport. He will have a conversation with Denny Hamlin, and he will point out maybe that Denny could have given him a little bit more room or whatever. But let the drivers work it out. They'll figure it out on their own.
Especially in practice.
Yeah.
A little more give and take.
Yeah.
Well, let's hear from some of the drivers involved. First, here's Matt.
And catching up with Joey Logano down here at the back of the 20 car while the team works on the nose. And Joey, some slight cosmetic damage to the front of your car. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I got out, and I got a little wrinkle in the hood. Is all you can see from the side of the car, and I was like, I don't think it's that bad, actually. We got lucky. I tell you, there's a lot of cars that were wrecking around us, and we kind of drove right through the smoke. So the Home Depot Toyota is lucky. We got the manpower to fix it, so we're going to be all right. Just looked like he got a little close up in front of me. It looked like Denny was pushing him. He was trying to get to the top side of the 5, and I saw the 5 closing the door a little bit, so I started giving the 11 rooms. I figured he's gonna have to back out, and I think just misjudged it maybe a little bit, and that sent the 5 going, and then big junk happened. So I'm lucky. I feel like I'm fortunate to drive through that one and just have some nose damage.
The difference driving this car this year versus last year with the rule changes with the restrictor plate, for you from the driver's standpoint, what's the biggest difference that you feel?
Well, we're just trying to feel it out right now, but I started off pretty loose, and you see a lot of 16 was god-awful loose out there. So I think our car's decent. We had to work on the entry a little bit and working over the bumps. I feel like I had a lot of body roll in it. So, but as far as the rule changes, it didn't make a huge change, I don't think. They're just trying to get the balance of the car a little bit better.
All right, thanks, Joey.
Thank you.
You know, Larry, Mike, I think the big change for him is him. Last year here, he was pretty lost out there, and he has gained so much experience, and he's so much more confident. I'm not sure he could have given that interview this time last year.
No. Now, he was in the Bud Shootout last year because he was driving a car that was qualified for the race based on last year's rules.
It was short-lived. He was caught up in a crash on lap 4 in that race. They've got a mess there.
Yeah, GoDaddy don't want to go.
Steve Meal talking it over there with Kevin Manion, the crew chief. And here's Dick.
With Jamie McMurray, what's the status of a backup car for you?
I don't know. I have to get back over and find out what the plan is. And typically when you come down here, you bring a 500 car, a backup car, and a shootout car. So I don't know. I have to get over and talk to Kevin and see what the plan is.
Tough start with a new team.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really even know what happened. I thought that I had it cleared. I saw the guys wrecking on the outside, and you go as low as you can. But it all happened so fast that you don't really know.
Yeah. Thank you. Glad you're okay. Denny Hamlin, how's the knee?
Oh, it's fine.
What happened out there?
It's a heck of a lot better than the rest of these race cars, that's for sure. But I talked to Mark, and I had a huge run going. And I was going to go to the outside of him, but I chose against it at the last minute. And then he was courteous enough was going to give me the lane high. And I guess when he checked up to give me that high lane, I'd already committed to go ahead and get behind him. And just a conflict of two lines, two cars going at the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess you could say.
Have you talked it over with Mark?
Yeah, we're fine. We just total miscommunication. That's the thing is, I think somebody was low, and he was coming up to get in front of me to make sure we kept the line going. But at the last minute, he saw I had a huge run and pulled down and checked up. And when he did, got right in the back of him.
Okay, I think they're looking for you in the garage. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's what I see happening. It looks like it's exactly like he explained it when you look at the replay. Denny had this huge run coming up the outside. Mark saw him coming, and I think Mark was probably going to ease down and give Denny room. About the same time, Denny said, well, I guess I'll just fall in behind him and give him a push, and he clipped him.
Well, let's find out. Here's Dick.
Well, Mark Martin, what's your version of what happened out there?
I was just telling these guys, I think it was a matter of both of us anticipating something, where it caused the clash. I saw him look for the outside, and it was practice. There was no reason to put the squeeze on him, so I did. I made an effort to give him the lane, and I think at that same time he decided that it wasn't worth pushing pushing it, so he decided to get in behind me, and and so that caused us to come together.
What's your status on a backup car, Mark?
I'll have to talk to Alan about that.
Okay, we wish you well. Thank you.
Dick catching up with those drivers just as they're released from the care center. There's a mandatory visit. When you have a crash like that, you have to go and be checked out. So they've not had a chance to talk to their teams and find out what's going on that you see now in the garage area.
A little bit of work going on the left rear quarter panel of Kyle Busch's 18 car.
Yeah, all that communicating, talking that we see crew chiefs and teammates doing right now is what is the status of a backup car? What should we do? That's what they're really discussing.
I think maybe the only car that didn't get any damage in that one is Derek Cope's number 75. He's not been on the track for practice yet.
Safest place is what you're looking at, the garage area.
On the third lap of this practice session, Jeff Burton clicked off a lap of 46.55. That is the fastest lap of the day.
And that's a pretty fast lap compared to last year. That's 193 miles an hour. And that's humping it around here. That's back to speeds like we saw back in the late 80s.
And you think about that wreck right there, Darryl, you've made many a lap around this place. People will analyze that wreck, who should have done what, who shouldn't have. You got about a half of a second to make a decision at the speed you're running.
Just go out there, folks, and get real close to somebody in front of you, and if they do something you don't expect them to, look out.
Dick?
Well, sometimes you're better off to be in the garage than on the racetrack. That's right where Dale Earnhardt Jr. was when everything broke out on the Speedway. But a lot of work going on your race car. What are they trying to do?
Well, we're running a little bit different setup and just trying some things while we got some time here. That's kind of what the shootout's about, is trying to learn what you can, and we're still working on it, trying to make it better. But we're really, really loose, and then we made it a little bit too tight, and we were coming in to make a change right before that wreck happened. So I'm glad everybody's all right, and they all got more race cars, I'm sure. So we'll hopefully we'll get out there and practice in this next one and keep making our car better.
Let's ask a little more important question. This beard that you have grown, is that a matter of downforce, or is it to reduce drag?
It was actually disguise during the winter time, but everybody hated it so much I decided to keep it. So at least my mom and my sister gave me so much crap about it, I just decided to keep it. But I don't know, we'll keep working on the National Guard Amp Energy Chevrolet. We got another practice coming up, and we got a lot to do in the next couple days before the race, and glad to be back in the race car. And the guys are pretty excited, and they've been working hard, so we'll see what we can do.
I bet if you win a bunch of races here at Daytona, that beard is going to stick. Let's go to Matt Yoakum.
Dick, work continues on Kyle Busch's number 18. Wesley Sherrill just finished working on that left rear quarter panel. It could have been much, much worse.
It could have been, yeah. There was a lot going on in a short period of time. So glad we got through it at least with minimal damage, you know, a little bit. Nothing that's going to hurt our performance, I don't think, for tomorrow night. So we'll be all right. But Debenham's Camry's fast. You know, I just wish it handled a little bit better, and Dave and I are going to work on that. But it's got some speed.
We talked about the difference for you in the feel of the new restrictor plate compared to what you had last year. And you said that you've been searching a little bit, just a little bit different feel than what you had last year?
Yeah, it's a little, I couldn't figure out what it was and what's different. You know, we got the wicker on there, the different wing rules, restrictor plate rules. So there's some stuff that's just a little bit different that I'm trying to figure out and pinpoint what it is that's making the difference. So hopefully we can figure that out here before the end of the day and get into tomorrow night and have some good racing.
Now, putting your Truck Series owner's hat on, congratulations on becoming a new NASCAR owner. How is that program going?
It's coming. You know, we're definitely heading in the right direction, I feel like. We got a lot of great guys over there working really hard and getting everything ready to go. Rick and Eric and Dan and all the guys. So really proud of the way the personnel's come together, too. The guys in the shop and stuff working together, making it one team. So it'll go good, you know. Unfortunately, I haven't quite heard the news of Mikasuki yet, so we're trying to find out what's going on there. But otherwise, we'll still be racing. But you know, the health of the sport, I feel, is going in the right direction. And the Speed Channel, you guys do an awesome job for us on the truck front. So we couldn't ask for anything more.
And look for Speed's coverage next Friday night when the Truck Series kicks off the 2010 season.
All right, let's talk for a minute about backup cars and the situation there. NASCAR has just informed us that if you must go to a backup car, now remember, we draw for starting positions for this event. We don't qualify with time trials. So as long as you practice that backup car at some time prior to the race, you can start in the position you drew.
And that's more a safety thing, is making sure that you've been out there in that car, and because we don't actually have qualifying.
You know, I was talking about the speeds are up. Last year at this time in this practice, 191 miles an hour was the fast speed. So we're 2 miles an hour up over that. And guess what 14 horsepower will give you? 2 miles an hour.
Yes, it will. And that's even with those things at the back of the car that actually put a little drag in it, hurt it on the straightaway. The restrictor plate bought it back and then some.
All right, NASCAR Live is coming at you on the other side of the break, but stick around because round 2 of Budweiser Shootout practice is not that far away, and it will be live right here on Speed. Jeff Burton, Jamie McMurray, Kyle Busch, pace practice marred by a 6-car pileup. Everybody's okay. A lot of backup cars coming out of the trailers.